Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an exclusive Capital Club series. Welcome to Create, Multiply, Preserve with Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy, as many of you know, is a world-renowned public speaker, entrepreneur, and coach to tens of thousands of entrepreneurs, if not millions, across the world, empowering them with personal development, finance, entrepreneurship, and business. I flew all the way to San Diego, California, to sit down with the man himself. Over his career, he's been able to unlock data sets and clues as to how you win in life, how you win in business, how you win in relationships. And today, I want to talk about how to create, multiply, and preserve a life of your dreams. Be able to set goals, establish these goals, and meet these goals with accuracy. But for that, well, we have to go to the sage himself, be able to dissect the intricacies of what it means to live a successful life and have what we want. Without further adu, Mr. Brian Tracy, how are you?
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be with you.
It's great to be here, not only for the fact that we're going to be able to share for the next couple hours a great time, but because of the amount of personal impact that you've had in my understanding of what it means to play the game of life. And in this, iteration of life that we talk about, and this uncovering of information as to these rules and these laws of reality, I came across your work. And your work helped me get to where I am in many facets of my mindset that have allowed me to really be able to be on the winning side, that 20% that you talk about.
Yes.
That really understands how to create, multiply, and preserve. Before we really get started in talking about these things, I want to take it for a few minutes. I want to take it back to where this entrepreneurship journey began for you. And I want to kind of hear about maybe the clicking moment where you're like, whoa, like maybe entrepreneurship is my career path. Maybe Brian Tracy International is where I'm going to be able to empower millions of people. I'd like to talk a little bit about that before we jump into the real game.
Okay. Well, I came from a poor family. We never had any money. And if I wanted anything, I had to earn the money myself. And so when I was 10 years old, I started going around to homes in the neighborhood and asking for work. And I got jobs working in the yard, hoeing weeds, I still remember, and mowing lawns. And we had an old lawnmower, a push lawnmower at home, and I'd push it around the streets and take it to lawns and cut the lawns. And finally my father said, well, would you like to buy an automatic lawnmower, a gas lawnmower? And I said, sure. So he helped me to buy it. I had to pay for it myself. And so now I had a lawnmower that did a much better job, and he helped me build a sort of a rickshaw on the back of my bicycle so I could carry it around. And pretty soon I was doing lawns all over the city. And I could earn more money doing a lawn. And then eventually I got an edger. I still remember that. I could trim the yard so they looked beautiful. And I was doing work for $2.50 that other people were charging $10 for. And within a year I was earning more money than my father was.
Wow.
And so when I was 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, I was supporting myself, and I've been supporting myself ever since. And what I learned from that is that you can earn any amount that you want if you're prepared to work for it. That you have to put your head down, and you have to do a lot of grunge work in order to get started. You have to be willing to do anything. And I remember years later, I applied for a job at a new hotel. And a manager said, well, what kind of a job do you want? I said, I'll do anything. He said, you're the first person who's come in here looking for a job who said that. He said, if that's the case, he said, well, I'll put you to work and I'll make sure that you have a job. And I did. It was washing dishes. And my biggest promotion was washing pots and pans. And eventually, after 6 months, I lost that job. So I got a job washing cars in a car lot. And I lost that job and I got a job washing floors with a janitorial service. I thought that washing was in my future. And then I got a job at a sawmill, stacking lumber. I got a job at a factory in the production line, and I got a job digging wells in the summertime. That's a very interesting thing because when you succeed, you fail. When you find water, they fire you. And so I would just sleep in my car and move on. But I always knew that if I needed money, I needed to eat, I could work. And that is a wonderful thing because successful people like yourself are workers. They call them workaholics. And no, they just think about working all the time. What's the solution to the problem? Work. Find a job. Do it. And if you keep doing that, eventually you find a job that is right for you. You stumble into it and you start to do well at it and you start to earn more money than you'd ever earned before. And this is really important. So I was going to tell you a story, and it's a story about, imagine a large city. In a large city, they have construction sites where they're building office buildings. So if you look at a construction site, and sometimes they have slots where you can look in it, you'll see that they dig a deep, deep basement under an office building. Now, what is the purpose of that? Well, the purpose is for parking, but it's also for foundation. So you can tell how tall the building is going to be by looking at how deep they dig the foundation. So let us say you build a building and you have a deep foundation and you build a building and the market is fabulous and you rent all of your space and you want to rent more space. Can you go back and rebuild the foundation deeper so that you can make the building taller? No, the answer is no. However, with us, it's the same thing, is that the height that we reach is determined by the depth of our preparation. And there's two parts of it. One is knowledge and the other is skill. And so every time you develop additional knowledge and skill that helps you to do your job better, what you're doing is you're building your skyscraper of life higher and higher. And at any given time, you can go back and deepen the basement. You can become more knowledgeable. And many people are successful in an area that they'd never thought of in life, but they stumbled into it, and they found that the better they get. A perfect example is when I could no longer get a job as an itinerant farm laborer, and I was desperate, I got a job selling from door to door and making a straight commission. I was selling a $20 item, and I got a $6 commission. If I didn't sell, I didn't eat. That was pretty simple. And I found that I had no sales skills. I wasn't afraid to call on people, but I had no sales skills. So I decided to study selling. And I read and I listened, and I still remember my first audio programs on selling. I listened to them and I practiced them. And bit by bit, my sales went up and up and up. And then people said, well, what are you doing differently? And I said, well, I do this and this and this, and this is how I approach. They said, well, why don't you recruit other people and teach them the same thing? So I did. And year by year, but within 3 years, I had 95 salespeople working for me in 6 countries. And I was earning 10 times more than I'd ever dreamed of earning in my whole life. And I look back, and it turns out it wasn't really that difficult. It was just learn the skills, apply the skills, and you cannot get worse by doing it. That's one of my favorite lines. You can't get worse by doing it. So what you do is you just get better and better, and you get more and more results, easier and easier. So I went from sleeping on the floor of a friend's one-bedroom apartment to a rooming house to an apartment to a bigger apartment to now 5,000 square foot house and everything else. And that comes from just learning and doing. So that's really the great secret to success, is learn and do, and become a lifelong student of your craft. Whatever your craft is, continually read and learn. I still read books on professional speaking.
How many books have you read in the last 12 months?
Oh, I read about 4 books a month, and I've read about 6,000 books in the course of my career. I read about 3 hours a day, 2 to 3 hours a day in patches. If I'm flying, I can sometimes read for 8 hours. When I was flying to Europe on a regular basis, I learned Spanish, French, and German, plus smatterings of Italian, Russian, and Polish. And I wasn't fluent in those esoteric languages, but I knew enough to be able to speak to an audience. When I was in China, I learned the basic salutations in China. The most enjoyable salutation I get in front of an audience, 1,000 people, And I'd say, ni hao. And ni hao means, how are you? And the audience would crack up hearing a Caucasian speaking the most popular Chinese phrase, ni hao. And so if ever you meet a Chinese person, you just say ni hao, you just put them off completely in a very positive way. So it's you're digging your foundation deeper by learning new knowledge and new skills. In this session, we're talking about the beginnings, starting off, creating. And many years ago, I read. But what I read was that if you write down your goals, you increase the likelihood of achieving them by 10 times. And I came across an exercise in a book, I still remember decades ago, and it said, write down your most important 10 goals every day. And so what I did is I got this, and I have a coaching program, and I bring in business people, and I charge them a lot, and they come to and spend a day with me every 3 months, and it's called Business Mastery. And I say that will guarantee you, I'll give you a double guarantee, is you will double your income and double your time off in the time that we spend together, 4 full days over the course of a year. And if you don't, I'll give you your money back. And I charge them $5,000 each for this course. And I had 20 to 30, sometimes 40 people in each course to make it financially worthwhile for me. And so they said, okay. And I put 1,000 business owners and entrepreneurs through the program over about a 7-year period. And I never got a request for a refund. Everybody doubled their income in a month, sometimes in a week. Sometimes they doubled their income so fast that they dropped out of the program. I said, I don't need to come anymore. I said, you just had the hors d'oeuvres. There's much, much more to it. No, I'm making so much money, I don't have time to fly out to San Diego. So it was really good. And I would say at the beginning of each seminar, each first day of the seminar, I said, now I want to introduce you to your new best friend. And your new best friend is a spiral notebook, and I handed out copies to everybody. This is going to guarantee, which is I wanted, that you'll double your income or much, much more. And here's how it works. And I pass this on because it's a combination of what I learned and what I practiced, is take out your spiral notebook and write down 10 goals that you'd like to accomplish in the next 12 months. You can have 10-year goals and 20-year goals, but keep it concentrated on 1 year, because 1-year goals are far more motivational and far more visible. You can see them than 10-year goals. So write down your 10 most important goals and do that every day. And first thing you do when you get up in the morning is you take your spiral notebook and turn to the next page, and without looking back, write your 10 goals. Now, in a very short period of time, your goals will change, description will change, some goals will fall off, some new goals, and your goals will start to be achieved. And I said, if you'll do this for 30 days, it'll change your life. And so people were paying me $5,000 to teach them this, so they did it. And they began to write down their goals every day. And if you want to transform your life, this is life transforming. Because what you do is when you write things down, anything you write, you reprogram your subconscious mind and you activate your superconscious mind. And your superconscious mind is this universal mind that attracts into your life everything that you need to achieve your goals. So start writing your goals down every day for a month, 10 goals. And if you change them and drop them off and so on, just do it for a month. If you have the discipline to do that, you'll change your life. And this is what I read when I was just in 3 or 4 years into speaking. So I did it, and it did. And I taught it to thousands, millions of people, and they do it. And they write me letters, and they say, you changed my life. You made me rich. I've received those words. It's almost like they bought a cue card, and you changed my life. You made me rich. I was at a big seminar in Washington 2 months ago with 2,500 people, and this gentleman came up and said, you're Brian Tracy. You changed my life. You made me rich. And I heard that forever. I said, well, what was it that in my materials, because as you know, I've written more than 90 books, and I've produced more than 1,000 audio and video learning programs, plus seminars all over the world. He said it was the goals. And everybody I talked to said it was the goals. I had no idea how important goals were. I thought they were a good thing to have, and you should have a goal and so on. But I didn't understand how to write them down in the present tense and the importance of writing and rewriting over and over. So you're driving them like an oil rig. You're driving it deeper and deeper and deeper until it hits the oil pool, and then it explodes in your life. And this is one of those things. I call it an unbreakable law. This is one of those things that always happens. It's not as if it'll happen to you, but not to you. You'll be lucky, you'll be unlucky. No, it always happens to everybody, and the goal that you'll want will come to you at exactly the right time in exactly the right form. You know, one of your goals, if you're a happy, healthy person, is to meet the right person for you. Just write it down. I meet the perfect person for me. So all you have to say, the superconscious mind will then go into the universe and bring that person to you. And you'll meet them in the most remarkable ways. For the rest of your life, if you're together, you'll be talking about remember how we met? Remember that? I mean, you did this and I did that, and you went to this party that you weren't going to go. It's always, so it's a remarkable coincidence that you meet the perfect person for you, and you'll meet them at exactly the perfect time. It's in New York, I have several publishers that I work with in New York. One of my agents, a wonderful woman, she was saying that in New York, they say when a person meets the right person, it's like a taxi, and their light was on. And so one of the things that people say, I just met the right person. Oh, your light must have been on. And it's because the taxis click on their light when they're vacant and they're ready for passengers. So what happens is when you are clear about what you want, your light goes on, and somehow you attract the right person into your life. Now, to go a little bit further ahead, I've written several books and articles on becoming a self-made millionaire. And I use this as sort of the running theme of my recent books, but I've already done a series of programs, 21 great ways to become a self-made millionaire in the course of your career. I think everybody should set that as a goal. It doesn't have to be the end goal, but it's a very good starting goal. And what you do is you write down in your list of goals, I have a net worth of more than $1 million by, and give yourself 5 or 10 years. I found that 10 years is a perfect date. People think, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire next week or next month or this year. No, you're not. To go from nothing to a millionaire is very, very difficult. My friend Jim Rohn said that it's not becoming a millionaire that's important. It's the person you have to become a millionaire. You have to become a completely different person than you were before. You have to have greater clarity, greater determination, persistence. The most important quality of all is self-discipline. Every study for 2,000 years has said that the number one quality for success is self-discipline. Napoleon Hill, and I just wrote an introduction to his new version of Think and Grow Rich for HarperCollins. And so I studied Napoleon Hill for years. He said that he wrote a book called The Master Key to Riches, which is a wonderful follow-up book from Think and Grow Rich. And The Master Key to Riches, he said, in this book, I will tell you the most important quality that you must have to be a big success in life. And so for 300 pages, he talks about all the different successful people who started with nothing and so on. But he just keeps tantalizing you without giving you the answer. Only in the last paragraph does he finally say, the master key to riches is self-discipline. And I remember that because self-discipline is your self-control, it's self-mastery, it's your ability to make yourself do what you should do, when you should do it, whether you feel like it or not. If you can't do that, then nothing is possible for you. If you can force yourself to do it, then everything is possible. I've written another book outline on the success habits of millionaires and billionaires and how they got that way. And one of them, which we talked about earlier, is that self-made millionaires get up early.
Yes.
Poor people get up as late as they possibly can, but they get up early. And according to the recent surveys, they get up before 6 a.m., sometimes 5 a.m. They get up and they start moving immediately. They do some kind of physical exercise to get the blood moving, and then they read.
Which is interesting that you mentioned that because you were also mentioning, these great conquerors. And you look at Aristotle's writes to Alexander the Great, and it says the first thing you must do as a leader when you wake up in the morning is go for a walk.
To go for a walk?
Yes. Which makes sense.
Well, it's interesting because when you walk, you can't read, you can't do anything except walk. And what happens is your subconscious and superconscious mind begin to work in the most remarkable ways. Walking or sitting quietly in nature activates the very best parts of your brain. If you have a problem of any kind, I just was writing about this, there's a magic formula for solving any problem, and it's called go into the silence. If you go into the silence, that means you sit quietly in the silence for about 25 to 30 minutes. That seems to be the magic amount, 25 to 30 minutes. You just sit quietly. You sit outside, sit in your bedroom, sit quiet, no music, no sound, no distraction, no cigarettes, nothing. Just sit perfectly quietly. If you haven't done it before, you're going to find it's extremely difficult the first time. After you've done it a few times, it's extremely easy. And actually, you look forward to it. I remember when I had a house full of busy children, I would actually stop in a park on the way home and just sit there in my car for 30 minutes. And whatever problem, difficulty, or goal that you have in your life, the answer will come to you. Just like in these cartoons, they show the lightning strike.
Yes.
As you sit there and bing, you'll know exactly what to do. And when you do it, it's exactly the right thing. It's the right time. It's everything. Very simple. Your mind is so powerful, but it's just like a radio station. You've got to tune into it.
Yes.
And the way you tune into it is by creating silence for 30 minutes. And most people have never sat in the silence in their entire lives. Never. They just have never done. They can't do it. They can't hold themselves still. They've got to do something or be busy at something. So if you can do that, so write down your 10 goals. Now, what I do in my goal-setting programs, and I have a book called Goals, which is the best-selling book of its kind in the world in multiple languages. And one of the things I say is write down your 10 goals and then imagine, I call this the magic wand theory. I say, imagine you have a magic wand and you could wave it over your goals and you could achieve any one goal within 24 hours. If you had this magic wand, which one goal would have the greatest positive impact on your life? Which one goal would have the greatest positive impact on your life? And very often it's a family goal, it's a health goal, it's a business goal. But for most of us, it's a financial goal. If I had this much money, that would solve most of my problems. Interesting, becoming a millionaire is a doable thing. I know because I've gone from rags to riches myself, and I've taught countless people how to do it, and they've gone from rags to riches just by doing some of the things we're talking about. And here's the interesting thing, that if the market takes a reversal and life goes to hell in a handbasket and you lose all your money, which is very common for self-made millionaires, especially first generations, the first time they've had $1 million. Well, the wonderful thing is you are now a millionaire in your thinking and in your emotions. So if you lose all the money, it's like knowing your language. You can just continue speaking the same language. You know how to make $1 million because you've already done it.
Yes.
And then the time it takes you to make the second million is very small. There, in the recessions we've had in the last decade, there are people who are multi-millionaires and even billionaires who've lost everything and then earned it all back again. And you think, so few people ever earn this amount of money, but this person's done it before. And if they've done it before, then they have the experience and the instincts and the courage and the tenacity and the determination and so on. And so they just do it again. So that's the most important thing about becoming a millionaire is because once you are a millionaire, you can then stay a millionaire, and now you can go to becoming a 2-millionaire.
Which is this process of creating, multiplying, and preserving that
Yes,
we
exactly.
talk about. You mentioned something extremely important for me when you talk about create. It's this process, you say work. You have to input energy in order to receive an output of energy.
Yes.
Right? It's an undeniable law. We understand that you have to emit life force in order to create something.
Right.
And you talk about this, and you mention many times this idea of you need to know how much you're worth, right? In this idea of what is your hour worth? Because you're exchanging life force energy and time for that other form of energy that you can transmute into doing things in life. Now you talk about work and you talk about creating wealth, but let's say somebody's sitting here, they're sitting with $50,000, $100,000 in the bank account. Let's say they're running an online business that's doing about $500,000 a year in sales, 20% margin. So they're doing well, but they really need to create wealth. What's the process? What is the mindset that somebody has to go from 0 to 1, this process of creating?
Well, to earn money is difficult. 80% of people may basically earn a living. They earn enough to get through to the next month. Their savings rate is 0 or even negative. They put a lot on credit cards and they borrow money and things like that. But to actually earn net money, to make a profit and yield this amount of money, that's the key to the future. And what you do is you take your net profit from your work and you reinvest it doing the things that you have done to earn the money, but doing them better and doing them smarter. We say in the West, dance with the one what brung you. So you want to become wealthy, then do more of the things that are giving you the most amount of wealth today. Now, it's very necessary that you try different things, but try different things carefully, because many people make money doing something that they have spent years becoming really, really good at, and then they make this mistake and think, if I'm good at this, then I can do that. I can be good at that just overnight. And then they lose it all. And they're so surprised. And the world is like sharks surrounding you, full of sharks who are willing to bite off a piece of you when you start to think that you walk on water and that you can make more money doing something else. No, people who are earning money in any field have worked for a long, long time to get to that field. And they're very cautious. I have a business adventure with a hotel, and my partner, who has the majority share of it, is a brilliant businessman. And he told me, he said, Brian, he said, about a third of your investments, 30%, will fail. No matter how much care you put into them, no matter how much due diligence, no matter how much research, about a third won't work out. And you must build that into your calculations. So therefore, invest at a low level. Don't put a lot of money into something where, because you haven't done it before, there's a possibility of losing it. And his net worth continues to grow and grow and grow. And he makes mistakes. He and I have never made any mistakes together, but he's made mistakes because you can't do anything. They say the first part of the word triumph is to try. And so he's constantly looking at building his financial estate, which means you have to try things. You have to roll the dice, and there's never any guarantee. Now, there's something else with regard to creating, and it's this. This is your second best friend, and soon your first best friend. Inc. magazine did a survey of 50 presidents of fast-growing companies and asked them, what is your most important business tool? And 49 of the 50 said a yellow pad, and they write everything down. Now, I cannot be more adamant about the importance of write it down, write it down, write it down. I repeat this over and over again, because if you write it down, you capture it. If you take notes on a telephone call, you capture it. The worst thing that can happen is you are too smart to write it down, and then you forget a key point, or you miscalculate a key point. You get the wrong numbers, wrong time, wrong date, write it down. So never answer a phone without a pen in your hand and a yellow pad. I have stacks of yellow pads. I fill them up, and these are remarkable. It's astonishing how much a yellow pad will help you. Write down your goals, write down your outlines, write down everything that you can think of, but capture it on paper. We say, catch the idea and write it down. Catch the idea and write it down. So whenever you think of a great idea, stop the car, pull off to the side of the road, write it down. Because sometimes that idea, which shoots through your mind, will make you rich. It'll save you 10 or 20 years of hard work. And over, each person here has had the experience of seeing someone do something and make a lot of money at it. And they say, I thought of that about 3 years ago, but I forgot to write it down. I never did it. So it's very important that you capture it on paper. And then when you have it on paper, then you start to think, well, what are all the ways that I could do, the things that I could do to achieve that goal, and write it down. Keep writing it. Keep writing it. This has been so helpful to me. I've written now, as of yesterday, I've written 92 books. And the books have been published in as many as 55 languages. And they have sold millions of copies all over the world. And some countries that I go to, they have billboards for me. Brian Tracy's coming to town. And why is because so many people have read my books. In Iran, for example, they have a fatwa passed by Ayatollah Khomeini, said that no one should receive royalties on creative things like books, because all creativity comes from Allah. And so therefore, in Iran, nobody can copyright a book. So if you write a book, they can take it from any language, translate it into Farsi, which is the Iranian language, and sell it. So I have as many as 4 or 5 publishers who publish my books in Farsi and sell them at the various seminars. And I've sold literally millions of copies. I didn't make anything from it, mind you, but as they said about the man who was tarred and feathered and run out of town, they asked him, what did you think about the experience? He said, well, if it wasn't for the honor of the thing, I'd have just as soon walked. If it wasn't for the honor of publishing so many of my books, I'd have just as soon gotten royalties. But the main thing is, I write a book, is I sit down, and it's a unique way, and it's on my website, briantracy.com, and 20 steps on how to write a book and get published. It's free. And what it basically says is you write down everything that you could possibly think of that you would put in the book. And then you go through the second time and you sort of break it into chapters. And then you start to dictate. And you dictate the chapters as conversationally as you possibly can. So that's my 3-point way of starting a book. And it works because every book I've ever written using that formula, there's 17 more points, has been published. And published all over the world and published in multiple languages. So, but the critical thing is write it down, write it down. This is a miracle. If 49 of the 50 successful businesses, if their business owners say this is the critical tool that made them successful, that's worth listening to. That's worth listening to.
You mentioned this idea of capturing a thought, which insinuates in some way, shape, or form that the thought is not yours. You're merely the receiver of the thought because, as you mentioned, this idea of being an antenna that receives information, right? And positioning yourself in a situation whereby you remove the static that allows you to then capture the idea. It's the combination of positioning yourself. Can you talk to me about the importance of positioning yourself to create wealth? Because a lot of people work, but they don't make money. So what's the difference between somebody that can create money and inputs a certain amount of actions and somebody who says, okay, I'm going to work hard, but they don't produce anything?
The difference has to do with the depth of belief that a person has in terms of making a lot of money. If I say to you, it's interesting because one of my reviewers of my manuscript, hired by the publisher, wrote a diatribe about how this is ridiculous and is not possible for most people because society is prejudiced and biased against people and everything. You want to strangle the person. But that's her worldview. Her worldview is that it's not possible unless you're born into privilege and so on. But 88%, the number of self-made millionaires in America is 8.8 million. It's an enormous number. And so 8.8% of wage earners are millionaires today, and 90% of them are self-made. They started with nothing. Many of them are immigrants that came here legally or illegally, but they started with nothing.
Staggering statistic.
Staggering statistic. But what it means is that it's possible for anyone if they believe it's possible. And the great majority of people are plagued by the worst human ailment of all, which is self-doubt.
Yes.
Self-doubt is the great killer. And so when you start to read about self-made millionaires, which I've written about a lot, what happens is you start to think, well, I could be one of those. I could do that. And suddenly you start to see your whole world differently. You start to read about it and study it. You start to go to seminars and workshops and learn about what other people have learned. And more you persuade yourself. Now, it's not hypnosis, but actually you just persuade yourself into believing I can do it. And you cannot achieve on the outside what you don't believe on the inside. It's a powerful psychological principle. And so with me, I worked at laboring jobs, and then I started to read about people who become millionaires. And I was fascinated by that because it never occurred to me that I could ever be financially successful. My family had no money. I had no money. I worked at laboring jobs. And as I began to think, well, I could do that. I could be that. My whole life changed as I began to see reasons why it's possible to be financially successful. And the principles are very simple. Work hard and work harder than anybody else. Start earlier, work harder, stay later. It's real simple. If you want to increase your quality of your life, start earlier, work harder, stay later. It's the most, you say, well, it can't be that simple. Well, give it a try. The 80-20 rule, which was devised by Vilfredo Pareto, an Italian economist in 1895, what he found was the top 20% of people in Italian society controlled 80% of the wealth of Italy. And as they began to apply this 80-20 rule, they found it's true everywhere. It's 20% of the people in any profession earn 80% of the money in any industry, any product or service or anything else. 80-20, 80-20. And I remember clearly standing on the street talking to a top salesman, and he was saying, you know, the top 20% of people earn 80% of the money in this business. And I said, really? I've never heard that. Oh, yeah, it's a very common law. Everybody knows that. I was about 24. And I said, well, and I still remember, I said, well, if that's the case, I'm going to be in the top 20%. And I still remember, it was like the nickel dropped. Bing! And from then on, my life was different. From then on, everything, I thought 20%, top 20%. And what I learned later is that everyone in the top 20% started in the bottom 20%. Everybody starts at the bottom, but the question is not where you start, but where you end up. And so therefore, if you decide, I'm going to be in the top 20%, write it down as your goal. I am in the top 20% of professionals in my industry in terms of income. You can pick a different number, you can phrase it differently. Then what you start to ask is, what is it that they do differently from me? And I can do that because you can learn anything you need to learn to achieve any goal that you can set for yourself. So you say, what do I need to learn? And use the magic wand technique. If I could just be excellent at any one skill, what one skill would help me the most to get into the top 20%, then the top 10%, top 5%, and it'll come to you. Bing, it's clear. Everybody knows the essential skill that they need for big success in their field. And so what you do is you set it as a goal. I am excellent at this. Always write it down in the present tense. And then think throughout the day, what do I need to do? What could I read? Somebody will come up to you and give you a book. You'll see an article in a magazine. You'll see something in the newspaper. You'll see a seminar. I've had people fly from one side of the country to the other to attend one of my seminars and tell me later it was life-changing. It was worth the price and the time and everything else. In other words, you will have the opportunity to fulfill the goal if you write it down. And it'll come to you, and it'll come to you in remarkable ways and remarkable times. Your mind is so powerful. You all heard about the law of attraction, is that you attract into your life the circumstances and people that harmonize with your dominant thoughts. And if one of your dominant thoughts is that you want to become wealthy and you love the thought of being wealthy, good idea is go out to open houses on a weekend in the most expensive neighborhoods in town and walk through the houses and imagine buying them. Imagine buying them for cash and start to look at the house and look at the wealthy people and all the things that they have and say, yeah, I could buy this soon. And what will happen is you'll start to attract, like iron filings to a magnet, you'll start to attract more and more money that enables you to do it.
I love that you mentioned this concept of re-engineering your mental framework as to how you perceive reality, because it all comes down to this idea of creating. It originates from the word ex nihilo, which is something out of nothing, right? So you have this concept of Brian Tracy, out of nothing, is able to create something because we have time, energy, and attention. Those are the three resources that we carry. We carry time, the time-space continuum. We carry energy, how we input things, and we carry attention, what we focus on, which is what you talk about. So we have time, energy, and attention, which is the only things that we truly have. And then simultaneously, we have this idea of setting goals that you talk about. And what I find to be extremely interesting is you keep talking about worldview and how you perceive the world. A lot of people listening are like, okay, Brian, that's cool. I need to change my mindset. That's great. I need to write down my 10 goals. But deep down, and we were talking about this backstage, is this voice that lurks in the back of somebody's mind when it's like, hey, I'm going to go create wealth. And then you hear in the back of your head, no, you can't. How do you address this voice? How do you talk to this, these thoughts that come to you when it's like, hey, yes, I am going to be the person in the top 20%. But then you have the other voice on the other side that also tells you, well, no, you can't. Your parents didn't do that. You can't do that. You're not cut out for that. You're not smart. How do you break that mental framework, and how do you develop that self-belief that then invalidates the imposter syndrome that every entrepreneur feels?
It cancels the imposter syndrome. You've heard the famous story of the old Indian, and he was asked about thinking. He said, I have two wolves in me, on the left shoulder and the right shoulder, that talk to me. One is the wolf of failure, and the other is the wolf of success. And he said, so which of the wolves influences you the most? And he said, the one I listen to. And so it's the one that you listen to, and you have a choice. The reason I say write down your goals every day, and you should do it after 30 days, do it every day. Get up every morning, take a deep breath, write out your 10 goals. Takes not more than 3 minutes. And it programs them deeper and deeper and deeper. And what happens is it erodes and destroys, almost like a powerful garden hose, cleaning off your walk. It just washes everything away. And pretty soon, you only believe in the goals. You destroyed the self-doubt. It's just gone forever. You just keep writing them down and writing them down. And in a very short period of time, your whole life will change. Let me give you a great story.
Please.
I was giving a seminar in Atlanta, about 1,500, 1,600 people. And a gentleman came up to me and he said, at the break, and he said, I'd like to tell you my story. I said, sure, because I said, He said, I came to your seminar a few years ago, and living at home with my mother, and I was low down in my sales force. I had a used car, no money, and one of my friends, offered to pay to come to this seminar. So I took him up on it. I came to the seminar, and in the seminar, I said, if you want to change your life forever, write down a list of 100 goals that you'd like to achieve in the foreseeable future. 100 goals. I said, but you're going to have to get prepared for this because it's going to take you about 2 or 3 hours. And what you do is you get newspapers and magazines and with pictures and descriptions of all the different things, clothes and cars and boats and everything, and just write it down. So that following Sunday, he said, didn't have anything else to do. He sat down and he began writing. And he wrote, it took him almost all afternoon, he wrote 100 goals. And then he put this list, put it on a spiral notebook, and he put it away and went out to begin working. Well, one of the goals he began thinking about was to meet and marry the girl of my dreams. And he was about 24, 25. And so he said, well, who would that be? And he thought back to the most popular girl in high school. And he was living about 200 miles away from the city he grew up in. And she was popular, she was vivacious, she was beautiful. He said, that would be the girl of my dreams. But she never spoke to him, and he never spoke to her at all during high school. So he called a friend. He said, do you know whatever happened to her? He said, oh, no, but my girlfriend does. So he got the phone number, and he phoned her up at work and said, I'm coming, you and I went to high school together. I'm coming on a business trip. I wonder if I could take you out for lunch. And she said, sure, okay. What's lunch? And so he drove 200 miles to have lunch with her, and they got along well. And he drove back, and he kept going every week, 200 miles. And they got closer and closer, fell in love, got married, and had 2 children. So this is 11 years after the seminar. And he was in sales, but one of his goals was to be really excellent in sales and make a lot of money. And he started to get better and better and better. He moved up and up and up. And he realized if he could do this, he could recruit his own sales force and sell a product for a larger company. So he did. He started his own business. He had now 6 branches of his business in surrounding states. After about 11 years, just before coming to my seminar, he was going through drawers, and he found the spiral notebook where he'd written all the goals. And he hadn't looked at this notebook in 11 years, but his life had changed profoundly. And he was talking to me. He was not a big guy, but a really fit guy, buff, if you like. And he was tearing up because it was so overwrought with this story. And so he took it out and he said, I wonder how many of those goals I achieved. And he opened it up and he began to go down and tick them off. And he ticked off and ticked off and he ticked off all 100 goals. And he had never looked at the list again. It had been sitting there in his drawer the whole time. And the reason that he was cleaning out the drawers is because he had had a dream house. And his dream house was a beautiful house on a lake, a waterway with a boat and everything else. And they were on their way moving to his dream house, which was one of the things on the list. And he said, it so profoundly changed my life. But the interesting thing is I only wrote them down once and I never looked at it again. And I achieved not 99 of the goals, but all 100. Now, the reason I say that is because when you write these 100 goals down, with the confidence that in the fullness of time, when exactly you're ready, they will come to you. It changes your whole attitude toward life. And then what will happen is one of them will come true, because it's going to be big and small. One of them will come true. And then a second will come true. And then a third will come true. And you'll think, oh my God, you're on a roll, like in a casino. It keeps coming up. And he said it changed his life profoundly. And he hugged me and I went away. He said it was the most important thing he ever did in his life. So the reason I pass that on is because when you write down your goals, what you're doing is you're wearing away any self-doubt, wearing away any concern. You just reach the point where you absolutely know that you will achieve that goal exactly when you're right. When you're right for it and it's right for you.
And I find it also as some form of meditation, connected with some form of receipt that you can look back upon and be like, it's like, have you ever had a pet, like a dog or a cat? You know, like when you get it at the beginning, let's say week 1, and then week 4, it's a completely different size, but you were there every single day, so you didn't really notice it. I think it's the same way for people's personal development. Is they don't look in the mirror every single day, so they don't notice the growth and the change. And I think being able to go back and look at the goals and how those goals have evolved and iterated and how you've changed through the process also helps invalidate these naysaying thoughts that come up, correct?
Right. Absolutely. And what happens is you start off with a medium belief system, more hope than belief, but as you keep writing them down, you drive them deeper and deeper into your subconscious mind, and finally you reach a point where there's almost like a click, and you absolutely know. You go from positive thinking to positive knowing. You know that you will achieve this goal. And so then the next question I asked, because I was almost broke when I started doing this, is how would I go from where I am now to becoming a millionaire? And I came up with a very simple formula. It's based on the miracle of compound interest. So if you were to increase your income by 2% per month, that would be 25% per year. 25% per year would be double your income in 2 years and 7 months because of compounding. And compounding, as Einstein said, is the greatest miracle of the universe, the greatest power of all. And even Warren Buffett said the reason why he's had a 1,250% return on his Berkshire Hathaway company, 1,250,000, unbelievable. He said it's because of compound interest. He said invest in good stocks and let them compound, never sell them. If you would do this 25% per year, 2% per month, 1/4% or less, 1/5% per day, more productive, 2% a month, 25% per year, 2.7% or 2.7 years will be double, and then double, and in 10 years, you'll increase your income 10 times.
Sure.
By becoming a fraction more productive each day. And is that possible? Well, anybody that I know could probably double their productivity in one day.
For sure.
Just right out of the gate.
I agree.
But imagine you could increase your productivity not just 1/5% per day, but 1% a day. It's not a lot. And I know it's true because I did a full court press on time management some years ago, and I wrote books on it. My book on time management, Eat That Frog, is the best-selling book on time management in the history of the world because it explains these principles. And people read it and they say, you changed my life, you made me rich. So you could do it. So a little bit each day, a little bit each month, a little bit each year, with compounding, you could increase your income 10 times in 10 years. So I tried it myself, and I taught it to lots of people. A friend of mine who had been through one of my seminars came up to me at a seminar in Seattle, and he said, Brian, he said, your formula doesn't work. He said, I've been using it every day for 6 years, he said, and it doesn't work. And then he smiled, big smile. He said, I increased my income 10 times in 6 years. He said, today I'm declaring on my tax returns, which is the true measure of how much you're earning, it's 10 times what I've ever earned in my life. I couldn't believe it. 10 times what I was earning when I went through your seminar. Does it work? So I did it, and I had the same experience as I increased my income 10 times in about 5 years, and then just kept working and did it again. It's so astonishing. It's called the law of incremental improvement. The law of incremental improvement is you don't change the whole world and get super better overnight. You just get a little bit better each day, a little bit better each day, and lock it in, a little bit better each day, and lock it in. And the cumulative effect, because of compounding, is quite extraordinary. And it works for everybody. I've never had anybody come back and say, oh, it didn't work for me. Of course, no, people say, not that it didn't work, but it worked so fast. It didn't take me 10 years. It only took me 5 or 6. Imagine increasing your income 10 times in 5 or 6 years and then doing it again. And what will happen is you will attract into your life the people and the ideas and the opportunities to achieve the goal. It's just the most amazing thing.
I think as we wrap up and then we transition in the next segment to talk about this multiplication, we can talk about the compounding effect, and we can talk about really being able to build sustainability in the multiplication process, which is how we talk about it. Yeah, you can make money, but then if you really want to fast track it, you have to be able to multiply. You have to be able to grow your money. But it's like Abraham Lincoln famously said, if I had 6 hours to cut down a tree, I'd spend the first 4 sharpening my axe. And it's this process of preparation that you're talking about of, yeah, maybe you don't have to go and swing and chop down the tree in the first try. Maybe this entrepreneurial bug that we all have of when an idea comes, it's like, well, let me go all in on this idea 100%. I'm going to get 1,000% return this year. And it's like, okay, hold up. And you talk about this idea of every day, day by day, I get better and better, slowly, surely, consistently. And I think what that also allows, and I kind of want to wrap up on this concept, is this idea of a state of mind that is in a state of equanimity or calmness, because you understand that the trajectory is long term. I see a lot of people that are trying to earn money that they don't see instant results, and there's a process of self-doubt, or this doesn't work, or insecurity, or throwing in the towel. Wrapping up on this idea of creating wealth, how do you develop this mindset of being able to be in a situation whereby you really begin to understand that you can double your income, that you can slowly but surely become incrementally better? And how do you solidify, before transitioning to being a person that multiplies wealth, being a person that creates it? So the question is, in a very simple framework, Brian, what is the issue of a lot of people not being able to do this?
Well, I say that the important thing is to make a decision. Make a decision that you are going to become a self-made millionaire in the course of your working lifetime. And lock it in, it's like put it in a safe deposit box. That decision has been made. Now, the only question you ask is how? How do I do it? And one of the things which I really advocate is read and study everything that you possibly can on what financially successful people do, especially people who started with nothing, people who came here as immigrants, people who came here illegally, people who came from poor families. And one of the most important qualities of all is optimism.
Yes.
It's just be positive about everything that happens. And we say that there's no mistakes, there's only lessons. And every single person who is successful today is successful because they had made major mistakes early in their career and learned essential lessons from those mistakes. One of the things you learn is who to work with and who not to work with.
Sure.
But you learn all kinds of things in evaluating products and services and pricing and money and everything else. But you can't learn these lessons without it hurting. So we say don't pay twice for the same real estate. Is if you're going to suffer the pain of making a mistake that sets you back, is learn from it so that it's a positive experience. So what I've taught my whole family, I remember my kids would get into trouble, and one of my sons got into shoplifting and got caught by the police, and I had to go down to the police department to bail him out. And he was just traumatized by what was going to happen afterwards. And I took him home, and I took him into my office, and I sat him down, and I said, Michael, I'm not mad at you. It's okay. I said, what happened exactly? So that was the first part. So he explained to me clearly he was with these other guys, and they were taking his stuff. And I said, okay, I've done worse things than that when I was your age. So I said, what did you learn? What did you learn? And that's where we focused the conversation on what he learned. And I said, fine, good. So it's been a good learning experience. And so what are you going to do from now on? And he was very clear about that. He's never going to do anything that got him into this kind of trouble again. And I said, good, then go back to work. And he was fine ever since, because I never beat him up. I never held it over him. I never reminded him of it. Just always asked, what did you learn? What did we learn from this experience? It was painful, so let's not pay twice in the pain and then not learning anything. But sometimes what you learn can be the priceless ingredient that makes you rich. And so be open to, what did we learn? What did we learn? And that keeps you optimistic. It keeps you positive all the time. You can't look for the good, look for the lesson without being positive. And pretty soon it gets to the point where negativity just has no place in your thinking.
Lovely.